But then the majority are very learned friends who believe everyone understands their Latin and the way they speak in court. At one point when I was in School of Law, there was an advocate who came to speak to us, a very senior guy. He said, the way he's looked at the market and the way it's going, you have to learn to speak, stop this complicated English. Start speaking simple English, the kind that anybody can understand.
Yeah, I think it's important to be true to self. Be that as it may, you need to leave room to unlearn and learn. If you're going for the long haul, that should be your modus operandi.
Most farms or young farms are really scattered in the practice areas and in the sectors, yet they want to position themselves as one thing. So I think it's also a problem that is there that needs to be addressed in terms of PR and branding.
You have to be very clear about this is the market, this is our global positioning, these are the practice areas, this is our expertise. So you have to be clear. If you're an IP lawyer, you're an IP lawyer. That's your forte. And then after you do that, then you look at your client list. You have to go back to your client list. A lawyer and a law firm is as good as their clients. Go back to your client list, look at their sectors, look at their industries, segment that client list, and then build content for those clients.
Hi, today we have the wonderful Wangui Njuguna, we have the able Mongela, we have the audacious Aura Fiona, and we have the opinionated Oliver Manyasi. Guys, we're here to talk about PR and branding in law firms, and all of us here have currently or in the past have been called business development managers for law firms in Nairobi. And so perhaps the question that I'll start with is, what does PR and branding mean for you?
It's an interesting question in this sense. The traditional law firm does not appreciate all the facets of PR in the sense because of our training. I have a legal background, and the training is such that you're supposed to let your work speak for itself. So in essence, that gets lost in translation. So when people are talking about PR and branding, in a sense, they don't look at that strictly speaking. They want the work that they have done, that they're very proud of, that they have spent years in school studying for and getting expertise on. They want that to be what speaks for them, as opposed to pushing any other agenda. And we still see a lot of that working out with partners in law firms, with other conversations that I had. So for me, PR and branding is getting the lawyers out of that cocoon of what they're used to and highlighting that which they're doing every day. I think that to me, in a very rudimentary sense, that's what makes sense.
Thank you.
Bouncing off of what Oliver has mentioned, lawyers are consummate professionals. So when it comes to talk of PR, branding, they disassociate because they don't see the element of positioning when it comes to PR and branding, which is basically, as BD professionals, that's what we do. We position through the PR, the personal branding, the firm branding, and the likes. So how does that look in the day-to-day in a law firm? From engagements, social engagements, because when you think PR branding, you're thinking social engagements, but there's also all these directory positionings that we do and submissions and the likes. So yeah, PR branding plays a big part in terms of building a pipeline for law firms and other professionals, which I feel older firms, new firms need to really look into in terms of their strategy and planning the business.
Yeah, thank you. Traditionally, law firms and lawyers have not had to think about branding seriously. If you do some research, the law firms that operated in the 18th century and in the 19th century basically opened shop and hung out their shingles outside their offices, and clients would visit. you know, and they would bill the clients hourly or a fixed fee. But now lawyers in the 21st century have had to think very differently about branding because of a number of factors. First being the shrinking market of legal services. We are seeing that in-house teams are increasing. We are seeing that corporates are now increasing their in-house teams, which means then those in-house teams are able to handle the routine work that would ordinarily be handled by external counsel. We're also seeing the Big Four aggressively getting into the legal market. And all these things are making lawyers have to rethink how they are positioning themselves in the market. And now it is increasingly important to think about distinguishing yourself by forming or distinguishing yourself by building a practice. And what we are seeing now work in the market is we are seeing individuals come out very strongly in particular sectors, in particular industries. We are seeing lawyers now position themselves in a sector perspective as opposed to a practice area perspective. So I think I would say it's an interesting time to practice law and to be in this space.
As Abel has put it, yeah, I'm going to say I think PR and branding for law firms is something that's sort of nuanced in a way, because there are some law firms that actually recognize the importance, and I feel like most of the ones that do are the ones that have been around for quite some time, because they can see the competition coming and they're like, now what can set us apart? And if you even look at the ones that have even taken the time to look for professionals in those spaces, they tend to have been in the market much longer. But students from law school, fresh out of law school, admitted to the bar, that's not what they're thinking about. They're thinking that those books they read are going to bring them clients. But the reality on the ground is very different.
The other thing I think about when it comes to this is, does it have to be online? Because then again, you look at what most of us are doing. We're pushing us to go to LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook perhaps, Instagram. Does it have to be online? Or WhatsApp statuses nowadays have become. So what's your take? Does it have to be online for a lawyer?
Ed, I have a question.
Yeah.
Where have you said Facebook? Tuanzie hapo.
Because I'm not on Facebook. But there's definitely a group of lawyers who should be, maybe would get their work from Facebook, yeah.
I mean, I would say that online would merely be a channel, but it would start with positioning. It would start by identifying the sectors and the industries that you would like to serve. It would start with being very clear about the clients that you want to serve, and then after that, then you choose the channels, and that would be the online. Yeah, so I would say that would come much later. But what is important, I think, for a lawyer and a law firm is really to first be very, very clear about the sectors they would like to serve, the clients they would like to serve, and how best then they can access or how best they can communicate to those clients. And then that would form the channels.
I'm sorry, can I ask? Evo,
Yeah.
what if I'm out of law school
Yeah.
and I have no idea which aspect of law I want to do? Me, I just wanted to get my 9 Ps, I got them. And then I'm just here. Sasa, what do I do? Like, I want to open my own law firm, Wangoi and Company.
Yeah.
And Abel is saying I should have known what I wanted to practice when I was coming out of that law school.
Yeah.
Me, I just wanted 9 Ps. Nancy, awapi sasa? Can we use Kiswahili?
Yeah. I would say that, I mean, we have evidence to support that lawyers who have distinguished themselves in forms of sectors and practice have succeeded. So it is important for a lawyer, even fresh out of a KSL, for instance, to think very critically about what they want to do. I mean, a lawyer cannot do everything. You cannot serve all clients. You cannot serve all sectors. You cannot serve all markets. You know, you need to be very, very clear about the sectors you would like to serve, the practice areas that you would like to practice in, and even go deeper. You can't say that, for instance, I want to practice maybe in the energy sector. It is important that you distinguish yourself. Maybe you want to handle PPP advisory, you know. So a lawyer ought to be very clear about what they want to do.
Na kama nataka tu pesa.
Interject. Money is what we are all looking for at the end of the day. But what you find happening, at least in the Kenyan market, is as fresh out of law school, you did pupillage. So where you did your pupillage, if it was a law firm practicing real estate, you find yourself already boxed in, because that's where you experience, that's the experience you get. So even when you decide to do solo practice, highly likely you're going to pursue the real estate angle, because that's what you've interacted with. So even as we say that it could be too vast and they don't know how to position themselves, they've already had that 9 months, 1 year experience, and based on the law firm they practiced in that time, that's where they end up. Again, which now brings us back to the law career fair, where we're trying to expose them. Okay, you want to practice sports law, but you did pupillage in a firm that just does corporate commercial work. So how do you navigate the space from corporate commercial into sports law? Who has done it? How did they do it? How do you chart and map your way towards getting that? So I don't think there's just one way of achieving your PR and branding. I think a number of ways, but yeah, that's why you really need to think about it when you set out to either go solo or even work within a firm.
Okay, I think the reality of how the firms respond, it's true what you said, Wangoi, or I agree in terms of the money motivator. The money factor cannot be divorced from this conversation. So as much as I agree with what Abel has said in terms of you need to know what you're doing, the reality is at the end of the year you have a scorecard. You need to have brought in X amount of fees, and that, in my view, and I've seen, drives a lot of the conversations around this. So as much as you'd want to do real estate, for example, as a 1 year, year one associate, you're coming into a firm, you've gone through the ropes, you've done your pupillage, you've gone through different departments and different practice areas, you understand what that is. At the end of the day, you tend to gravitate towards what brings in money. So that traditionally has been corporate, but we're seeing a lot of firms changing that narrative in terms of what they're doing. Whether it's TMC, a lot of data protection has been happening since the Act. A lot of nuanced like projects and infrastructure, energy, a lot of stuff are changing. But it really depends on where you start. So if you start with a firm that purely does real estate, or if you get into a practice where you're boxed into real estate, and that's where the money is and that's where the need is, you'll tend to stick it out throughout your career. And I'm glad that yes, the career fair is there to change the perception of this, because most of the information is not really out there for you to see and make a decision that yes, I want to stick to energy, for example, energy and infrastructure, and I want to stick there towards the rest of my career. I think at that age, when you're coming into practice, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but no one really knows. When I started out my law career, I didn't know that this is what I want to do. I didn't even know at the time that there's anything like legal BD. This is back in 2011. So there was nothing. You're just running a practice. I was under pupillage, and I was basically doing everything. And that, to me, gave me the ability to move around and understand what works, what doesn't. And at the end of the day, you tend to gravitate towards where the money is. That's the truth. And we can't ignore that. Because as much as people join this industry out of passion, at the end of the day, passion can't feed you, right? And bringing this conversation back to branding is, reputation can get you into the room, but branding is what will have you remembered. So it does need to make sense, and you do need to be very clear what you're putting out there. And you're talking about online and whether it's a TikTok video, whether it's a Reddit post that goes viral, it needs to make sense and gather the credibility that it deserves. So you're not just saying things that won't make sense, but that will always be linked to you, because the internet never forgets. again. So that's what I think in that regard.
I like that you guys have sort of taken the conversation towards finances and budgeting. You look at most law firms as you open your firm, you're 5 years in, even 10 years in, the budget for PR and branding is quite low. What would you suggest would be like a good way for lawyers to think about this budget? Where do you think this money is coming from? Is it coming from the profits at the end of the year? Is it coming from a file? What percentage would you suggest that they put into PR and branding in terms of the financial aspect of it? That's because that's one of the challenges here. It's like, yes, it's nice, you're talking to us about branding and you're telling us you do all these things, but where is this money coming from?
We're having an initial conversation with Abel about percentages, but I'd like him to share. But just to tweak on something, you see, there's branding, but there are also other elements. Over time, I think the profession has grown. If I ask Wangoi right now, what exactly you do for your firm, it's not just branding. Yes, exactly. That's the thing. So all this has been broken down into very many facets, and we were having a conversation earlier about percentage and what that looks like. And I think Ewell had a good answer to that about the percentage for the firms and how or where they should place, either profits or income or revenue with regard to BD activities, branding activities, strategy and growth and that whole facet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what we have seen, or rather my experience has been, lawyers are not very keen on the business arm, and you realize that law firms are ambidextrous organizations. They have two limbs. There's the practice, the legal practice, and there's the business. So a lawyer ought to think very critically about the business side of the firm. They ought to build knowledge and understanding in the different concepts of their business. It's important to understand how law firms make money, and that's why I think the pupillage time that young lawyers spend in their firms is very, very important, because it's during this time that they're able to understand the business model of law firms, to understand profitability, to understand how they make money, to understand what is a cost center and what is a profit center in a law firm. And I think that's usually the miss for most lawyers, because they don't understand that a law firm is a business like any other. It's subject to all the principles, or like any other business. So a lawyer should be very, very clear about the trajectory of their business, treat their business arm very, very seriously, build knowledge and understanding in that particular arm, understand how law firms make money, understand that it's through selling an associate's time at Y and buying it at X that you actually make money, and how then can you improve that, or how then can you ensure that you get the most you can from your talent. So I would say budgeting is important, but we would first have to go back to how do we make money, and how then can we maximize that? What can we do? And then of course go down to the budgets. Very, very few law firms have budgets, I know. Budgets for BD, general budgets. Very, very few law firms actually track the revenue that their lawyers generate, for instance. Very, very few law firms generate the revenue per lawyer, actually are able to track the revenue per lawyer year on year. So it is through doing these things that you will actually be able to appropriate the right amount of money for BD and for strategy and for marketing and all these good things that we're saying.
I just realized that there's a miss, and for those of us who are recently from the Kenya School of Law, do you remember having such training or any sort of direction in terms of business for law?
I would say when during my time at Kenya School of Law, I think the unit that tries to attempts to expose you to legal practice is legal practice management. But even so, it's, I think, sometimes focused on the accounting and not really on the business model of a law firm and the different models that have worked for different firms. There's a miss. So I think lawyers are really, sometimes I try and think about it, and lawyers have a lot of work to do, because they need to build the understanding of the law. They need to build the understanding of business in order to run more profitable firms. And they still need to build client relationships. So they're wearing different hats. Yeah, and it's not easy to juggle.
So Abel, imagining if you're like fresh out of school, and we've opened Wangoi and Company,
Yeah.
Now, imagine I need to have this branding in place and this PR.
Yeah.
We've already established the big guys don't have budgets. So me, the little guy who's just coming out, how can I position myself with the little money that I have and no file, so that I can get at least a matter to come to me?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I know the rules have changed, and now advocates can open a law firm straight out of pupillage.
Yeah.
But what I would say, what I've seen work, or what I would do if I were taking that path, I would then stay in a firm for a number of years, build an understanding of how the law firm works, how the law firm makes money. During that time, also build my client relationships. Okay, and then I would also enjoy the support of other departments at that time. I would learn how the finance works. I would learn how the business development function works, you know. I would learn that if I did this, if I maybe build my experience or specialize in a particular sector, I would be able to maybe handle the files more quickly, and that translates to more money, because if I'm able to handle files faster, it means then that I'm able to take on more work, you know. And I'm profitable. My revenue my revenue is high. So I think a law firm experience and a tier 1, mid-tier, tier 2, a law firm experience, I think provides invaluable experience. I would say it's worth its weight in gold, really. Yeah.
So those guys who are in those little law firms outside of Nairobi, it's a sinking ship.
Wangoi and Company, please.
I feel like I have an answer for Wangoi and Company, because my clients tend to be that kind of person. The first thing I tell someone is, let's build the basic tenets of what branding is. Come up with a logo, come up with your brand colors, have a similar font in every aspect, so that if I look at your profile and I'm getting a letter from you, and I'm seeing how you draft your plaints in court, and I'm seeing how you're doing, like, you know, your conveyancing documents, so your sale agreements and your transfers, are they all neat? Can I see similarity in all these documents? There's a basic tendency to how, you know, the way the brand looks. When I come into your office, even if it's a 2-door office, how does the front office look? Can I be able to know your brand from the door? Is there consistency? Are you training your person at the front desk, your executive assistant, in how they're going to communicate, how they answer the phone calls in the office, how they're able to respond to emails, how do they chat on WhatsApp? Because now we are serving our clients on WhatsApp, we are communicating a lot on WhatsApp. So it's like, just that consistency is what I'd call stage 1. If you're this kind of person who is like, I met some people yesterday and I was like, if you can't work with other people, then it's fine. It's okay. You can open your own firm. You can open Wangoi and Company. But then begin with those, because then you will be able to walk into a room, and of course your first 10 clients are most probably people around your circle. So it's going to be, you know, family, friends, or someone who knows somebody else. But you'll one day walk into an office of someone who'll be like, oh yeah, I know your dad, but I'm willing to give you a brief. Then what are you bringing? Can they be able to trust that information? Most probably if you're fresh out of law school, the internet is not so complicated for you. You can be able to open a LinkedIn page based on your LinkedIn page for your firm. You can be able to go to like a studio somewhere, get a few photos taken, create a basic, even if it's a landing page, even if it's not a full-on website, that you can be able to just launch with, so that if someone Googles Wangoi and Company that is maybe located in Ruiru, I'll be able to get you and know which building you are and which floor you're in. So for smaller firms, it's just begin with the basic tenets of it. And for sure, I think one of the other things is, one of the advice I give a lot of law firms is this: just take 1% of your profit, as he was saying. If you can be able to calculate your profit per file, so you're doing a P&L per file, take 1% to 5%, depending on what you're comfortable with. Put that aside and make that as your PR, branding, whatever it is, budget. Then you've begun the process.
Just add on to what you are saying, in as much as we are thinking of the basic tenets of having branding and PR, I feel it's very essential and very key from the get-go to have your personal brand, which also translates to the values you possess. If it's a Christianity angle that you do have and it's a value you do have, instill that already from the get-go, which is what people normally miss. When you see visions and missions, people just write up our mission is to something, Africa, be the gateway to Africa or something. And it's very generic because you don't see it in how they practice. And then there's a mismatch, because then even when they're trying to now even market and build the different platforms, they're not communicating based on their basic tenants, which they've already pushed out. So there's a disconnect. And then 10 years down the line, they have another BD manager who comes in and is trying to figure out from brand color, which could be yellow, but it's now there's
what's the issue? Yellow.
No, I'm just saying it's you can see that there's no continuity.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect. So whatever they've tried to build kind of waters down. I like using Bob Collymore as a pointer in terms of how branding works. When you think of Bob Collymore and Safaricom, he was many things. He wasn't just Safaricom. You could think of the jazz. You could think of the thing he did with traffic and getting his people not to speed and whatnot. There are very many facets, but you could tell his values. Yeah? And then juxtapose that with Peter right now. Even when you think, right now when you hear Safaricom and you hear Peter, you just, I don't know. What's your take? Let me first ask.
I don't know his values, I can tell you that.
But did you
I can suspect.
did you resonate with Bob?
I liked Bob.
I think they also have two different personalities.
The personalities are very different, but in terms of when you think of Safaricom and Bob, you could see his values through Safaricom. Yeah? So when you're trying to build a brand, build it as close to yourself as possible. If you're brash and short and like short with people and whatnot, that's you. And there's a client like short with people in terms of you're very quick to, respond and whatnot. I just mean, if that's you and that's how, there's definitely a client for you who wants that. If you're polite and kind and like to handhold and build storylines in between explaining what a matter is about, and that's you, go with it through and through. So that even people joining your company and your firm and institution know that these are the values we are going with. This is the brand, which actually helps in terms long term. And even when you're talking of budgeting, I feel like it's something that needs to be instilled from day one, so that it's let's call it an asset in the long term. If you're thinking long game, it's an asset you need to have, so you don't get confused down the line, don't get watered down or even absorbed by another company, and then you disappear.
I think it's important to be true to self. And what I always think in these situations is, be that as it may, you need to leave room to unlearn and learn. If you're going for the long haul, that should be your modus operandi, right? So it needs to be very clear, so that you're actually getting with the times. I think Wango, you're the one who's mentioned that most of the firms that are embracing having active BD and strategy and growth and relationships and all that, they have been there for a while, so they're seeing. And look, the legal market, and this is subject to opinion, but I feel like it's still enough. I may not have the data to support this, but the market is still there. So as much as KSL is churning out lawyers left, right, and center year on year, and there's a feeling amongst the lawyers, and amongst the advocates, that we do not have work. It's one of those that you do need to be very clear in terms of your direction, and it needs to make sense. And as a young lawyer coming in, learn. I think the most important thing is to learn and take in as much as possible for you to be able to cover the years to come. We keep talking about, there's a running joke about pipeline and how that should be the most essential thing, because once you're done with your brief, then what? Because I think as an advocate, I can see the allure of a matter and how intricate it gets, how involving, how time sensitive it gets. You know, it's not just urgent, but it pulls you in. So you get to a point where you only want to focus on that and leave out the rest. But at the back of your mind, you need to remember tomorrow.
Actually, to add on to what Oliver has said, I think that is a real concern even for the top firms, even for the international firms. And it's actually called the partner's paradox, where a partner focuses on the short term, which is the work they're doing now, rather than focusing on the long term, which is the active client and BD engagement, to ensure that they have work for the future. And it's a real challenge to find that balance, especially considering that they are called fee earners, you know, and by doing the work and producing the legal work, then they bring money to the firm, and they sometimes get a percentage of the money if they're partners. So it's a real paradox, and it's something that is difficult to, it's a delicate balance to achieve. But lawyers must now think about the long term. They must now think about the growth of their firms. They must think about, where do I want this firm to be in 20, 30 years from now? You know, and I would say, I think the part of the reason we are here is also to guide some young lawyers. You know, if you're to look at the legal market, I would concur with Oliver that yes, there is a big opportunity. The legal market in Africa is only expanding, I think, by 5%. If we were to look at the data and the numbers, but the growth that we are seeing, because I would say there are two kinds of lawyers. There are first lawyers who support the corporate clients, and these are lawyers who would ordinarily work in the top firms or in the mid-tier firms. And then there are the second cadre. These are the lawyers who support individual clients. Where we are seeing growth now in the sector is in the first cadre. The lawyers who are supporting the corporates, who are only increasing. They're moving to different markets. They're moving to their different locations. They're trying out different innovations and different products. So it is also important for young lawyers to align behind the change that we are seeing. And there is evidence to support that. If you look at how the different firms have also grown in Kenya, in South Africa, if you look at how Bowmans grew, they grew by following their clients around Africa, you know. So we have some instructive lessons that can help young lawyers position themselves. Yeah, because I know sometimes it's good to run the small practices, but it's sometimes very difficult to grow such practices from my experience. Yeah, not all lawyers can be in the top firms or in the mid-tier firms, but I think positioning is also important.
Can I just add something in terms of branding and positioning and whatnot? It becomes a problem because Kenyans, let's not specifically lawyers, but give me the work, I'll figure it out. I will figure it out. So you find hatuwezi kwa sana. So you find this person starting Wangui & Co.
Many brand. By the way, Sina.
This person in Wangui & Co. has expertise in mergers and acquisitions. But then there's a client who walks in and wants help with IP. Wangui & Co. won't turn it out. But now they're trying to figure it out. But yet they keep talking to people about Wangui & Co. We're a mergers and acquisition firm. But all the expertise they've gained is in IP, real estate, and it's all scattered, which 10 years down the line, they still can't support their mergers and acquisition branding.
It's following the money.
Yeah, no, it's following the money, which we are all looking for. But then you see, if they did focus on the mergers and acquisition, they would, it's called a red herring, where now you know this is what I'm looking for, you start seeing a lot of it and you gain expertise in it. But now most firms or young firms are really scattered in the practice areas and in the sectors, yet they want to position themselves as one thing. So I think it's also a problem that is there that needs to be addressed in terms of PR and branding?
So the thing is, you find that when you're a small-time open startup law firm, you tend to just the work that's coming is what you're taking in. I think they need to, and someone was saying this, need to have a divide, sort of like create, even if you're a 1-person, 3-person show, create departments in your law firm in terms of your mind, and be like, okay, yeah, fine, I've gotten this conveyancing matter. Maybe it's not even that difficult, I can do it, but I know for sure that my long-term goal here is to become, an M&A lawyer, for example. I know someone who does specifically environmental law. It took them quite some time before they gained enough traction for their firm to now be recognized within that sector. And you cannot refuse money that's knocking at the door because you're specifically doing this one thing. Our training is that diverse. Point being, I think what we need to do is just create that system, that way of saying, let's be able to give it time to grow as we create this on one side. Are we creating content for lawyers? That's something I keep saying. I feel like law firms are creating content for other lawyers and not creating content for their ultimate clients. What's your guys' take?
I agree with you 100%. I think the challenge we have is we have lawyers like Oliver who understand PR and branding and will create content and try to relate it to their audience. But then the majority are the very learned friends who believe everyone understands their Latin and the way they speak in court.
Modus.
Yeah, the modus operandi. So watakuja waandike hivyo LinkedIn na waseme why are the clients not converting, and then they come for people like me and Aura here. Sasa, that is the challenge, one of the challenges we have. And I think I love how at one point when I was in School of Law, there was an advocate who came to speak to us, a very senior guy. Don't ask me his name right now. But he said, the way he's looked at the market and the way it's going, you have to learn to stop this complicated English. Start speaking simple English, the kind that anybody can understand. Simple Swahili, the kind that anybody can understand. If it's converting in the market, let Oliver and Abel tell us. Yeah, now do you wanna practice?
I would say that has been a problem. Yeah, but the interesting thing is that was a problem for the top international firms maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. They've solved that problem. Law firms are now clear about the sectors they want to operate. So a law firm would say maybe be clear about operating in the technology sector. They would be clear about who would be their clients. They would map out the opportunity. They would map out and know these are our clients, and this is the content that will be relevant for them. So the firms in Kenya now are the ones that are struggling to do so, but the blueprint is there. It has been done before. You have to be very clear about this is the market, this is our global positioning, these are the practice areas, this is our expertise. So you have to be clear. If you are an IP lawyer, you're an IP lawyer. That's your forte. And then after you do that, then you look at your client list. You have to go back to your client list. A lawyer and a law firm is as good as their clients. Go back to your client list. Look at their sectors, look at their industries, segment that client list, and then build content for those clients. Yeah, but most people, you find that they see a new regulation is out and they just write an alert and hope that it will reach someone. Yeah, but that doesn't really work. You have to build tailored content for particular clients. If you do some research, it then becomes easy for you to do so. I'm sure my colleagues can confirm, most of the work that law firms in Kenya do comes from the financial services sector. So any firm in Kenya should at least be very, very keen on this sector. These are the banks, these are the microfinance companies, these are the insurance companies. Yeah, and at least build content for those clients and try and tailor everything that you do in line with those particular clients. But many lawyers don't want to do that. They think there's a one-size-fits-all approach, and it really is.
I think it's very nuanced. It goes beyond now thinking of your target client and what they want to read. Now there's this whole attention. We are all fighting for attention, for someone to pay attention to what you're saying. So in as much as you've curated the content and been like, okay, this is what these people want to read, now you also have to fight for the attention in the different platforms. And there's that problem of, I give you a post, so put it on LinkedIn, on Instagram and whatnot. All these use different way. There's a different way to communicate in all these, so you have to think of that. And also, how is it going to be appealing? Because 2 sentences in and I'm not getting any value, or I don't know exactly what I'm going to get from reading this 2-minute article. I've scrolled. How many of you go like, a video starts, you're maybe 5 seconds in and you're like, I don't know what. They're really not getting to the point and you keep scrolling. So yes, the content is out there. If someone was searching, they would come to it. But how long will you keep their attention? Which also now circles back to even thinking of how law firms are building their websites and how to keep the attention of the potential client. Because you get to the homepage, thank you, I'm happy you have all these awards. You've probably worked on all your SEOs and you're like, yes, we are the people you need to go to if you're looking for a real estate agent. But then I get to your homepage and I'm happy your managing partner did this and whatnot, and we are the leading law firm. So it's still, you're still struggling to get to the value proposition part of it, and then you lose your audience. Because even before they go to the people and whatnot, you've lost them on the homepage, which is why you'll visit and see analytics and you're like, wait, I have 1,000 walk-ins into my website, but they all leave after 5 seconds. So why are they not going to the people or the insights that you've worked really hard and pushed your advocates to churn out all this content, and you have it there, but you're not keeping their attention? So I think in as much as we do have the blueprint, we also need to really look into how we are getting the attention of these potential clients and people who are now visiting your sites, visiting your LinkedIn pages and the likes. Like, it's good that you're doing all this good work, but what does that mean for me as a client? How is this beneficial to me?
We do need to give our clients some credit. This day and age, we're dealing with very sophisticated clients. They know what they want, so no amount of fluff will really, get through them. They know what they want. They know how it's done. And when you pick up the phone or want to write an email and you have a need, you have a problem that needs to be solved. And so as trusted advisors, I think lawyers need to have that from a credibility standpoint. So your credibility is what will, at the end of the day, hold you, regardless of all these other things that are working for you. Because you do need to stand out in that sense and keep that reputation going. And also, we're dealing with egos. And when before you get to win that award, it does take time. So I would not be quick to dismiss that on the homepage of any lawyer, because it takes time, and that is a form of credibility building. It needs to be sustainable in terms of what clients see, and the client is king at the end of the day. And I'm glad that in this day and age we are dealing with sophisticated clients who really understand, and they can push the buttons to ensure that everything is delivered to them. And given the market, of course, we can see a lot of that happening. Everyone is trying to grab their attention. So what does that look like in terms of you, a lawyer, trying to position yourself for this? It's your credibility that will hold and build that relationship. Exactly. Thank you, Ngoy.
I agree with you, Oliver, that we are dealing with a more sophisticated client. Most of the clients we're dealing with now have big legal teams. I think if you were to look at the legal teams, the in-house legal teams for the leading banks in Kenya, you'd be surprised. Some have 20 plus lawyers in-house, and the way work also is, the way they also give work has also changed. Lawyers are now put in a panel. When they have a specific assignment, they send out a request for proposals, and then you respond to that proposal stating why you'd be the best firm to then handle that matter. So we are beyond the fluff and the shiny things, and we are now in the age of you really have to demonstrate to the client that you are the best in that particular sector and in that particular industry, you know. And just to add on what you said about websites, if you open most of the websites, at least of the Kenyan firms, the website is, you would first go into practice areas. Clients don't understand the practice areas. You would see corporate M&A, and then you see banking and finance. And clients view themselves or look at themselves in form of industry. You know, so if you look at the websites of some of the forward-thinking law firms like Oric and some of these firms, some of these international firms, you'd find that they are basically divided into sectors. So you'd go in and see technology. So a client would go into the technology sector, and they would click in, and then there they would show the previous matters that they've handled, the previous transactions, and the impact of that kind of work, and then they would go to the accolades. The client would be like, for sure, I see that these guys are serious about what they're doing, you know. So we really have to think differently. And just to add on what Oliver says, I think there's a run for money, but the money eventually comes if you build the expertise, I think. Yeah, the money comes if you build the expertise. The money follows expertise and experience.
What's your take about the divide between the firm's branding and the individual lawyer's branding? Are we being forced to merge the two? Is there a place to have a very different brand as an individual and versus the firm? We have had a lot of scandals recently with young lawyers, blasting law firms on social media for, how a specific partner acts or whatever has gone on. Is there a way for firms to survive this mess? Are we going to a system where we're going to be having managing partners drowned because of or even partners in law firms drowned because of the individual actions and the individual brand, which they believe is the right one? What's your take? How do you advise a lawyer to be able to just think about the two?
I would say this. If you look at the way law firms are structured, so you would have the managing partner, and then you would have the partners. And the way they practice, they then practice in silos. And someone is in charge of their practice, they're in charge of their clients. And what is difficult, and I'm sure my colleagues can allude to this, what is difficult is then how then do you ensure that you can break these silos and have these partners sing in the same choir? How then are you able to herd these people who are very well known in their fields, very well experienced, they have books of business, and how are you able to make them leave their individualistic tendencies and now move to a more aligned approach, And I think that speaks to the challenges we are seeing with individual branding and also with the general firm branding. So individual branding is important, but it's important for any partner or any lawyer to realize that they are operating in a bigger space, and the bigger space is the firm. So they cannot be so keen about what is happening in their practice that they forget the overarching goal of the firm. And it's not very easy to lead partners. Sometimes it's referred to as herding cats. It's difficult, but partners must be very, very keen and aligned towards the firm objective.
I think that should be very clear in day one. So when you're coming in, part of the induction should be what are our values, so that if something doesn't fit within your space, you can walk out. So the work culture is such that you're going to spend most of your working life at work. So if that does not blend well, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong space. And that's where we get instances of people blowing up and following, different directions in terms of what they want to portray to the world as unfair. Yet, they were not really told to begin with that this is what is happening. So, but both of those sets of branding is very clear and should be held with the import that it deserves. So you can't do one without the other. You can't just disappear in the firm branding and forget that as you interact with clients, as you interact with your colleagues, you have your own brand that is there. And some of this it only comes with interaction with others. That's how you're able to identify how clear your personal branding is, and what online, whatever your profile online says about you. Because right now, I think a client looking at hiring a lawyer, the very first thing they do is do their own research before they end up at Wangoi and Company Advocates. They're very clear that they have done their rudimentary research, and they're not just coming because they had somewhere. Yes, if it's a referral, they still dig in. So that sort of branding is important. And when they search, and I know I've done several trainings over the years, several pieces of training over the years to lawyers about the perils of social media. And you can have you can have something that is running, that you did, say, in 2012, and it's still there. The internet never forgets, as they say. So when someone is doing their basic research and that's what comes up, you need to be very clear that whatever you're putting out, even pre-employment, pre-joining a firm, that is your identity. And you'd better be very clear in your mind that this is what you want to have moving forward, such that 30 years down the line, someone will look at something, running for a position, for an organization, you're bidding for a particular set of work, and they come and see this. That's why you cannot really ignore your own brand, because it will affect the organization, it will affect you personally, and it'll affect your pocket at the end of the day. So you do need to be very clear how that is carried, and make sure that it blends within the firm. So if the firm doesn't work, move on to where, acceptance is key. We don't do rejection. That's our modus operandi.
But yeah, it's a very symbiotic relationship. And I find myself challenging advocates when it comes to, there's this perception that marketing and front-facing is the managing partners or the partner's job. And I keep saying it's a very short-sighted way of thinking. Because what's your plan? Are you planning to be here pushing paper for the next 30 years? If that's your plan, which is okay, if that's your plan, there are people who are okay with that situation. But if it is not, you really have to think through what your positioning is and how you're plugging in to the firm picture. So it's you already being given a platform to work from. So how are you going to utilize it? So usually that's how I look at it, and it's very symbiotic, because lawyers are dealing with people who are already in distress half the time. It's a money problem, it's a family problem, it's something that's close to the heart. So people who are hiring, or the clients you're looking at, really also want to resonate with the person. They hire the person. They don't necessarily hire the firm. They do hire the person, then with the support of the firm and whatnot, all that comes into play. So you also have to think about who do you want to be, how do you want to be positioned, and then plug into the bigger picture. And then also, again, think of yourself 10, 30 years down the line. If the firm falls, what happens to you? Will you say, I don't have a digital footprint because it was the job of Edward to do the marketing? What do you have to support yourself? Yeah.
Wangoi and Co will not fall because
Hi, Wangoi.
because we followed what Aura said. And one thing that I heard that question, and one thing that it took me back to is what you said when you said that you should know your values because they should translate in your brand. And because we're speaking to these young lawyers who are opening their practices or maybe starting to practice in a firm, and some of them might not be or have access to some of the opportunities we've had working with these big organizations, and they're going to work with these individuals. What they'll bring to the table is a sort of an image that is reflected of based off of the character. The values that they have put out in these are of vision, mission, values, They should all be connected to who I am as a person, so that there's no disconnect the way you guys are saying. I remember what you said because it really spoke to me, because it made me start reflecting. These law firms that I know, which ones do I know that actually align? Like, I know this is the managing partner, the founding partner, and you can actually say, the way you said about Colimo, that you could see him and you could see the values. Same way, you know? So I think that's my parting shot for young lawyers, that they should be able to have their values reflected in their firm, because it will be even easy for them to turn away some briefs. Just because you're getting work doesn't mean you should do all of it. Yeah, there's work you need to say thanks, but go to my neighbor next door. Yeah.
As we finish, as you said that, I remember saying that bei ya mafuta imepanda, so pia bei ya stamping inafaa kupanda. Ama bei ya affidavit. Everything needs to go up. What is, as we finish, because we're about to finish, what is one strategy as we go into the second half of 2026 that you would then advise lawyers to take up in terms of branding or PR? Just think about an area or something that just pops into your mind, and you'd be like, this area, this is what I'd tell you guys, this is what I'd advise someone to do in one of those areas. Is it maybe videos, whatever it is, just think about it and be like, this is an area and this is a strategy I tell someone to take for the next half of the year.
For me, it was more long term. So again, I'm more of I follow relationships. I take that as my pride and joy, because relationships are, open everything. So for me, from a branding perspective, or how you want to look at it, I think you need to realize as a young lawyer that clients, they don't just come to you for legal expertise. It's about the relationship. It's about your commercial awareness, and finally your responsiveness. If you're not doing the basic that forms part of, or the core of who you are, if you cannot respond to an email, the simple things, if you can't respond to an email in under 24 hours, clients come in with a lot of distress. If you cannot hone that and give them comfort, you're losing it. So that should be part of your brand, and realizing those three things, commercial awareness, relationships, and responsiveness. That's it.
Start now. There's no point overthinking of that strategy for 2-3 months. 10 months down the line, you're still at point zero. What I realized after working with a few advocates is, when you start, it's easier for you to recalibrate down the line. Because when you're not doing it and just overthinking it, and also thinking that you're writing for other peers, other advocates, it becomes a problem. Because the ego thing comes to play. Like, oh my God, I'm an advocate. I would never write FAQs. Like, I handle such big briefs and whatnot. FAQs is really not my thing. But the thing is, someone is looking, your clients are looking for someone to digest and feed them. Think of a mama bird giving the baby bird the food. They're looking for someone to chew and give them the food, which comes out in things like FAQs. So start now, then down the line, figure the rest out. So build that digital footprint today. Don't wait for, don't wait for the perfect time, because that perfect time, I don't think it comes. Yeah, and there's always stuff happening. There's always another brief, and there's always a lot of work. And in your day-to-day, there's experiences you're having, that you're interacting with, that for you is common sense, and it's not common sense for a non-lawyer. So put it out there, attract your clients, and see where it goes.
My parting shot is clients hire lawyers and not law firms. You are as good as your client relationships. So ensure that you obsess over those clients, obsess over those relationships. Ensure that you understand your clients, you understand their business, understand how they make money, understand their pain points, understand their sector, understand how they're growing, understand their short-term strategies, understand their long-term strategies. And once you do that, then you're able to really provide sound legal advice that works for their businesses. And I would say that clients are increasingly now hiring not only lawyers, but business advisors who happen to be lawyers. So we really need to understand their businesses.
Wangui and Co is here. So Ed, going back to what you had said on, we were talking about branding and PR. For someone that's starting out, and maybe you're thinking, I don't even have this money. You probably have a mobile phone. So you can probably do a bit of research and figure out, okay, what colors are good for law firms? Do that. You probably need to figure out, okay, I don't have money to go and pay someone that is going to ask me for a decent sum, like Aura here, for, doing a brand and everything. Go to Canva and see what templates they have there. Figure it out. Like the way she said, just start. Because after you start, because we already know you've gone to law school, you have this knowledge, you're going to be networking with your peers, you're going to get a brief somewhere down the road. You still need to start with this branding thing, and you don't have to think it's a complicated thing. You can even just go to YouTube, check it out and see, how do I create a good brand, and that can give you some ideas. And then down the road, when you get that really nice brief, Abu Kolas will help you out. The end.
Thank you, guys.